You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
It's Wild Weekly on the Fan.
Pass it from Kaprizov, shoots and scores.
Now here to talk about the Minnesota Wild and the NHL. From the Wild, Kevin Fallness. And from the Fan, Brandon Molesky.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to KFAN Wild Weekly. He is Kevin Fallness. I am Brandon Molesky. And Kevin, Wild playing a little bit better the last 2 weeks or so, 4-1-1 in their last 6.
Yeah, that's November. October was dreadful. What did they lose? 9 of 12 to open the season?
Yeah.
Complete opposite of last year, where they came out of the gates like gangbusters and dominated a road trip to start the year where you thought that's when they would fold. But no, October was terrible this year. And I know that November certainly hasn't been perfect, but it's been light years ahead of where they were when they started this season out.
Yeah, the Wild still on the outside looking in terms of the current playoff chase, but at least have gotten themselves a little bit closer to those wild card spots, currently 2 points out of a spot. And you do look at now, Kevin, because this team has played a lot of close games this season, and they've gotten overtime 6 times. Unfortunately, in just the overtime session alone, they are 1-4. We saw another loss the other night against San Jose. Second time they've gotten Celebrini'd in overtime. And now the discussion, of course, when you're 1-4 in overtime, Kevin, is what changes should we make in OT? Do we need to change personnel? Do we need to change philosophy? How do you approach that topic?
Well, I'll tell you this much, and take the San Jose loss out of it. Go back to the first overtime loss to the San Jose Sharks. The Wild dominated that overtime period. There's just no way. They held the puck for almost 4 minutes. Now, it was a big rebound. Brock Faber takes the shot. The goaltender kicks it out to center ice. It was Askarov that set up Celebrini. He goes off on a break, and bang, one shot. They beat Jesper Wallstedt. But I don't know that you could have played that overtime much better other than scoring a goal. I don't know that I'm necessarily worried. When you've got guys like, and now that you have Zuccarello back in the action, but you got Zuccarello, you got Kaprizov, and you got other guys that you can throw out there, whether it's a Jules Eriksson to win a faceoff or Jonas Brodin and his smooth skating on the back end. I feel confident that this isn't going to be the rest of the season where they're going to lose 1 of 5 overtimes the rest of the way. I just think that they're too well constructed to not get some results here in the very near future.
I'm going to throw some ideas across to you, Kevin. I feel like this is something I haven't seen any NHL coach do, so maybe I'm the idiot. But I'm going to throw them to you anyway.
Okay.
So the opening faceoff is extremely important, correct?
Yes.
Whoever wins the opening faceoff, it seems like they've got possession for like a minute and a half to begin overtime. Why not after that opening faceoff? Right? I get you need to have Jules Eriksson on the ice for that opening draw. Depending on whether you win or lose, I feel like you can make changes right away, right? Like, if you win the draw, you bring it back in your own zone, and you're curling around for like 10, 15 seconds. Like, there's time there to make a lineup changes. Even defensively, there's a time to make a lineup change immediately after a faceoff has been won or lost. So after you win a draw, let's say Jules Eriksson wins the draw, why not put him on the bench right away and throw out a Boldy to go with Kaprizov, or throw out a Zuccarello right away? You have possession. Let's get offensive. Not that Eriksson is a bad offensive player, but I think there are upgrades offensively there, or even defensively. And I know this is going to sound sacrilegious to take Kaprizov off the ice, but if you lose the draw and the other team has possession and they're circling in their own zone, either put Boldy, who is very highly offensive but is more defensive than Kaprizov, heck, throw a second defenseman out there until you get possession and then make the change. Once you get the puck, then you get Kaprizov out of the ice.
If you don't have possession, though, how do you make a change?
Because they're going to be circling in their own zone for the first. They all do.
Yeah.
Right? They don't win the draw and immediately go on offense. They all go back, and the face-off circle's right next to the benches. You can make a quick change there.
Yeah.
So that's my idea. My other idea is I would give Zeev Buium a look. In overtime, because he is your best offensive defenseman, and you give him even more space in 3-on-3. I think he could be even more dynamic than he is when he's 5-on-5.
Yep, that day's coming. There's just no question about it. As that kid gets more and more comfortable, he is going to be a threat in this league on a nightly basis. I still think he's kind of feeling his way, but you see flashes of that confident kid that used to play for the DU Pioneers, and he's starting to flex his muscle a little bit on this NHL stage, and I'm excited for that day. I don't know when it's coming, but there's going to be a day where he's going to be I don't want to throw out a Cale Makar name. He's not going to be as dominant as Cale Makar, but he could be a Makar light.
You just did. 20 seconds, your thought on the goaltending situation, because Volsted's been playing pretty well.
Oh, man. I can't believe they didn't come back with him against San Jose after pitching the shutout and winning 2 consecutive games. I thought there was a very good chance that he'd be throwing it back in there, but they go with Gustafsson. I don't think goaltending is the biggest problem, but, man, you just need these guys to steal one every now and again, especially the Gus bus, and right now he hasn't been doing it.
Maybe they need to steal one against one of the best teams in the Western Conference right now, the Anaheim Ducks.
Crazy.
We preview that and talk about the rest of the Minnesota Wild with Joe O'Donnell, radio play-by-play voice for the Wild Radio Network. We talk with Joe next right here on Wild Weekly.
Celebrini closed on by Zuccarello, so he played it to Dickinson. Zuccarello ended up in a heap. Sharks fired along. Celebrini with Graf going in front of the net. Macklin Celebrini threw one that way, and they score. Colin Graf stick handled past Gustafsson. Tuck Toma backhander. And the Sharks, for the second time in the season series, win in overtime at Grand Casino Arena. They've won 4 in a row for the first time since the 21-22 season. They rally in the third, and they beat the Wild in sudden death overtime, 2-1 the final.
Yeah, that was 4 nights ago back at Grand Casino Arena. This is Brandon Molesky, Kevin Fallness, KFAN Wild Weekly. The voice of that highlight on the Wild Radio Network was Joe O'Donnell, and he now joins us now. Joe, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. And I'm getting kind of sick of the Celebrini quick kid already. He's kind of a wild killer.
Yeah, man, he's an amazing player. When you have a guy like Kaprizov and Boldy on your side, you don't want to get too envious of what the other people's lawns look like, so to speak. But, man, that kid, he's something special. Every night it feels like he's joining an elite group of all-timers with so many road points in the first games of a season, or a last teenager to do this, or, whatever it is, leading the league in scoring, for crying out loud. It's pretty impressive.
Joe, that said, the Wild did do a pretty good job of limiting him on Tuesday night, and the fact that he didn't even get a shot on goal. I was listening to the Sharks head coach after the game, and he had a ton of praise for what Jules Eriksson did to limit him in beating him, by scoring goals. But unfortunately, the kid's a world-class playmaker, too.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kevin. I think, kind of as the game was moving along the other night, I was thinking to myself, and I think at one point I even said to Tom, he's been kind of quiet. I didn't want to jinx him, but he didn't have a huge impact on the game. And you're right. I think a couple of Wild players mentioned it after the overtime loss on Tuesday night as well, was like, hey, the job that Jules Eriksson did was, sort of world-class on such a good young player. And that's the benefit of having an Eriksson and a Jonas Brodin in your lineup. We've seen him do that to McDavid and Draisaitl for years. At some point those guys are going to get theirs, but if you can frustrate them, if you can make it a harder night on them, you hope that ultimately you get to a playoff series and that stuff, starts to really come to fruition. So good job by the Wild to slow them down, but ultimately you get just 1 point in the standings. And I think, it sounded like a very frustrated group of Wild players and head coach John Hines, because they played really well. If they were 4 games over 500 right now, you go, oh, we got a point, that's fine. But when you're scratching and clawing to get out of a bit of a hole from early in the season, feels like sometimes you're kind of wasting away a point or two with now 4 overtime losses.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, Joe. The 4 overtime losses, they're 1-4 once they get to that extra session. Would you make any changes in terms of personnel or maybe philosophy or aggressiveness, or is it just one of those, hey, these guys have been successful in these roles before and it's just a kind of a small sample? How do you approach, just because you had 2 more points, all of a sudden it looks much different in the standings?
Yeah, I mean, right. You'd basically be in a playoff spot. As most of this week has progressed, the Wild have been just a couple of points out of that 8th spot, but 3, 4, 5 teams ahead of them. So that can get daunting when you look at it that way. I think it's a fair question, Brandon. I have seen some of the local scribes clamoring for Zeev Buium. I don't think that we'll see many more overtimes without results going the Wild's favor before a move like that is made. It's you just don't want it to become a mental thing, right? Like, some teams have extreme confidence when they get to overtime. Some teams feel really good about their shootout chances because of their goaltender or a couple of scorers they might have. You just don't want it to get to a point where it's like, all right, now we're in overtime. Like, what's going to go wrong for us? I feel like the Wild have played really well in the overtime. So look at the Philadelphia loss. Eriksson Ek had a great chance from the inner half of the left circle on a one-timer. Just pushed it short side wide. Dan Vildar, the Flyers goalie, reaching across there. The game against the Sharks, they controlled that entire overtime. Couldn't get it to go. Celebrini won it. The highlight you just played where, it's not like San Jose had the puck the whole time. So the one Wild win in overtime heading into this game tonight against the Ducks was that the game where Johansson put it into a net that wasn't there. So it's been kind of funky overtime so far. Let's hope they can get it right. I believe they were 9-4 last year in games decided in overtime. So, they have the ability, and we've seen it years past with Kaprizov, et cetera, to win those types of games.
Two-part question here about Mats Zuccarello. The Norwegian returns to the lineup. You had a bird's-eye view on Tuesday night from the Al Sabre press box. Was it a penalty on Mats Zuccarello in overtime? And second of all, how huge has it been to this lineup to have him back and get guys slotted back where they belong in the lineup?
I'll answer the second part first, Kevin. I think it's been just crucial, just absolutely critical to get him back. Not only the chemistry with Kaprizov and the Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov line being pretty darn good and pretty dominant. Most nights you'd expect them to, handle their business, but it just drops everybody down a peg. And I think that's huge. You're asking guys to get back into more comfortable roles for him, whether that's Marcus Foligno, whether that's Vladimir Tarasenko, who, is up there in age now and isn't like a top six play driving, push the pace type of forward at this point in his career. It allows Marcus Johansson to play on a different line in some respects. So I think it's critical that the Wild stay healthy and guys are slotted where they're comfortable, because as you've seen, if you have one or two injuries, you might be able to survive a few games with a call-up or a guy playing up in the lineup. But ultimately, they are where they are most of their career for a reason. And I think it just helps to have the kind of the opening night lineup for the most part, outside of Nico Sturm, maybe Zach Bogosian right now. You could really say the Wild haven't had their opening night lineup that they had on paper in the summer, not once this year. But to get Zuccarello back certainly helps just the depth piece of things and to get everybody slotted properly. And as for the play, I didn't go back and really watch it. It didn't seem too egregious to me. The Wild have had the most power play as far as differential goes in the league. Like as far as having the power play and being shorthanded, they are a plus 29 on the year. That's far and away the most in the NHL. So I don't think the refs have shorted the Wild at all. They've earned the power plays they've gotten. They've been fairly disciplined as well.
We're talking with Joe O'Donnell, play-by-play voice for the Wild Radio Network. Wild in action tonight versus the Anaheim Ducks at 5 p.m. You talked about guys being slotted into their proper roles. I want to know what you think of that new look fourth line. It wasn't long ago we had Ben Jones and Tyler Pitlick back there. All of a sudden, you're off back after being in the press box for a couple games. Foligno slotted down, and then Trennion. What have you thought about that threesome?
Well, I think they've had some good offensive zone time, which is important, right? The less you're defending, obviously you're going to keep pucks out of your net. That's the main job of the fourth line. You've got Trennion near the league lead in hits. You know what Moose brings to the table. I think Yurov's starting to find his footing a little bit. I don't know that you're ever going to see a whole lot of offense from that line. I mean, Foligno had 29 points last year. That was the second best of his career. Yurov's obviously as fresh faced as they get. And Trennion, for being a guy that has scored double-digit goals in his career, we just haven't seen it with Minnesota for whatever reason. Like, they're getting chances. You hope they start to bury them. I'm just not going to hold out hope that line's going to produce a goal every other game or every 3 games at this point. I think they just have to spend time in the offensive zone, continue to work over their opponents, so that they're defending less, be physical, on the forecheck, make it kind of hell for the opposition. 45 seconds, get off the ice and get the top guns back out there.
Let's go back to the blue line then. A kid that I feel is super easy to root for is Damon Hunt, the kid that you traded away to get David Jiricek. Now you got him back off of waivers, and it feels like he's become more and more comfortable in his own skin. I know he's just playing the third pair, and he's kind of thrown in here kind of haphazardly, but when he's out there, he looks more and more smooth as he continues to progress. What have you seen from Damon Hunt as he continues to get more comfortable on the ice?
Well, I think you said it perfectly, Kevin. He's a kid that's easy to root for. And when you started to phrase that, I thought you were going to go with Z Bouillon, because he's another one that's young and easy to root for. But Damon Hunt's a guy that, I got to see a little bit in Iowa during the COVID-shortened season of 2021. when, junior hockey was kind of up in the air. He came to Iowa, played a little bit with Ryan O'Rourke, another young Wild defenseman prospect at the time. And those two guys were, just trying to figure out the pro game, and then eventually went back to their junior days and wrapped up their junior careers. And Hunt now is a guy that's played between his time last year in Cleveland, right after the trade, Columbus sent him down. Between Iowa and Cleveland, you look at Damon Hunt, he's got almost 200 career American Hockey League games. And we always talk about the defenseman needing a little bit more time to get ready in most cases. He's 23 now. He's got a big frame on him. I remember even the start of last year before the trade to Columbus. Of course, as you said, the Wild reacquired him on waivers during training camp. But last year, before he was dealt, Brad Bombardier was telling me that Damon Hunt shoots the puck and passes the puck like an NHLer. And that stuck with me. And when you watch him out there, you see that. Like, his passes are crisp. He can shoot it. His skating ability, something John Hines has talked about. He's showed the ability to jump into the rush and pinch in the offensive zone. He drew 2 penalties the other night against the Sharks, which, for a defenseman that has 2 career assists and is still learning the NHL game, I thought that was, obviously a good sign with the way the Wild power play has been this year. Like, the more chances you get on there, the better. So I think he's starting to find a comfort level. I think when Zach Bogosian comes back, you could see those 2 players playing together, possibly. And I think that really for Hunt, he's been asked to play on his offside. He wants to play. You can tell he wants to play. He's earned this opportunity. He patiently waited for it. He's making the most of it, and couldn't be happier for him.
2 more questions for Joe O'Donnell as he gets prepared for the Wild versus Ducks game tonight at Grand Casino Arena. We got to talk about Marcus Johansson. 15 points in 18 games, 6 goals, 9 assists. Whatever you think of plus minus, the stat is still he's the best on the team with a +4. It feels weird saying this, Joe, but where would the Wild be without Marcus Johansson this year?
Yeah, he's been their most consistent offensive forward, I think you could say. He has points in 13 of the 17 games he's played this year. No, he's never going to be like a 3 or 4 point game, 3 or 4 points a game type of guy, most likely. Like, Kaprizov could go 2 games without a point and then have a 2-goal, 2-assist game. Like, I don't think you're going to see that from Johansson, but an assist here, a goal there, certainly something the Wild need, that depth scoring. He obviously brings a ton of experience and speed, and as game 1,000 neared for him and he hit that milestone, John Hines was asked about him a lot, Brandon. He talked so much about his ability to be versatile. So if you want to play a north-south game on the third line, Johansson can fit that bill. He's not going to be a physical guy, but he can skate, he can fly, he can get up the ice quickly. If you need to put him with creative players, thinkers, guys with a lot of skill, he's got that ability to his game as well. So I think it's, for a guy that signed like an $800,000 one-year contract when I kind of thought his Wild career was over, for him to come back here for another season, and really put together the type of year he's putting together on essentially a one-year free agency type of deal, like a prove-it deal this late in his career. It's really impressive. Says something to him about his dedication, his veteran presence, his love for his game, the commitment level. Came in camp in good shape. He's playing great hockey, and it's, again, to your point, I don't know where the Wild would be without him. It wouldn't be at 500, I can tell you that much.
Feels like there's a changing in the guard, especially here in the Western Conference. We got to see San Jose. We know the up-and-coming Chicago Blackhawks, the Utah Mammoth. That team tonight, Joe, is another one of those teams that not that long ago were dead and buried in the National Hockey League, let alone the Western Conference and the Pacific Division. The Anaheim Ducks feel like they're on the rise, led by Leo Carlsson. What are the Wild up against tonight against another team that we know how the Wild have struggled against young, fast teams? Well, that's the Anaheim Ducks in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's they are probably the surprise of the National Hockey League right now. I know some people picked them to have some success, to be a better team. They had a huge jump in points actually from 2 years ago to last season under Greg Cronin, who's now the Iowa Wild head coach. They had a point total of 59 points in the 23-24 season. They got to 80 points last year. They missed the playoffs, and they made the coaching change anyway, despite that 21-point increase under Greg Cronin from year 1 to year 2. They bring in Joel Quenneville, who kind of been out of the game for a myriad of reasons recently. He was, it wasn't a good situation with whatever transpired there, whatever he was a part of or not a part of, but he caught some shrapnel certainly and has been out of hockey for a couple of years. And now we see Joel Quenneville back, and he's got the Ducks playing great hockey. They just had a 7-game winning streak before losing to Colorado a couple of nights back. They lost 4-1 in Denver, but they won 7 in a row, their longest winning streak since 2021. They've only trailed after the first period a couple of times this season, so they're getting off to good starts. They scored 7 or more goals 4 times in their first 13 games. Only 3 teams the last 30 seasons have done that. I mean, some of the numbers are really gaudy and impressive for a team that I don't think many folks expected to be anywhere close to where they're at. As far as division leaders go, they're the only division leader currently that missed the playoffs last year. So it just shows you kind of how quickly they have come to the forefront. Leo Carlson, a big part of it. We all know about Jackson McComb and his ties with the state of hockey. Mason McTavish, a great player. Ben Akseniki, another young player that's having a lot of success. And they have some veterans, too, that are playing well. Chris Kreider, a guy Wild fans will know from being around the block forever. Frank Petrano. You know, they are a hockey team that is certainly going to play with pace. They're going to test you. They can fill up the net. And Lukas Dostal is one heck of a goaltender. We saw him last year in the regular season finale, and St. Paul gave the Wild everything they can handle. So should be a fun game tonight, an important one for Minnesota.
Thanks, Joe. Look forward to hearing you tonight.
All right, guys. Take care.
Joe O'Donnell, play-by-play voice for the Wild Radio Network. You'll hear the Wild taking on the Ducks with Kevin Fallness as well, and Tom Reed. 5 o'clock start tonight. Good luck on the call tonight, Kevin.
4:45 pregame. Don't be late.
Thank you. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, you will.
He's Kevin Fallness. I'm Brandon Molesky. This has been another edition of KFAN Wild Weekly. Thanks for listening.
The best place to go for all your Minnesota Wild audio needs is the official Minnesota Wild podcast presented by Acrisure. Everything Minnesota Wild related, including highlights, press conferences, players, coaches, general managers, and more. It's available on the official Minnesota Wild podcast presented by Acrisure. It's all just a click away at wild.com/podcast.